Ready to go. Ready to go. Yeah, I think so. If you've ever wondered about competing in a natural bodybuilding show or the processes that it involves, then this episode is for you. Hey guys, it's Ben Seong here from Learn Australian Strength Performance and Learn ASP. Now today's episode is going to be a really special one because I'll be talking and documenting my journey of the last 6 weeks into my next bodybuilding show, which is really on the 10th of April, coming right up. Now I've competed before in several federations and competitions, and I've won those competitions and placed very highly. But this particular one that I'm going to be competing in is a new category for myself. Now, some of you will be familiar with this category. It's called Classic Physique. And the reason why I have waited for a while is because I couldn't find a natural bodybuilding federation that actually had this particular category, Classic Physique. And finding it in the ICN, which is the federation I'll be competing in, is amazing. So I've decided to hop in, and I will be competing together with some of my trainees that I work with. And obviously everyone is in a different category, but I will be competing with them on the same day, and I cannot wait to share the stage with them. So here's my journey heading into the last 6 weeks of competition. As you probably will realize by now, I'm a little bit foggy. There is a little bit of brain fog based on the lowered calorie intake as well as the higher sort of training output that I'm putting in every single day. And I'll be telling you all about that as well. I'm going to start off this video by answering some of the questions that you guys might have had on bodybuilding. Now, some of you that follow me on social media at Ben Performance Coach will have seen the post that I put up asking you guys for questions. And of course, I had a ton of questions rolling in, and I put some of these questions together, and I will be answering them for you. So if you haven't thought about these questions, or if you were the one who have asked these questions, then these are your answers. Question number one, is competing healthy for you? I think in the sense of challenging yourself, competition is definitely a new milestone for a lot of people. I always find that the biggest hurdle within any sort of bodybuilding competition is not so much the training aspect of it. Obviously that requires a ton load of dedication, but it is really the emotional connection that people have with food and everything that revolves around food. So typically it's having to stick to a certain nutrition plan, same sort of foods over a period of time. And this is where people get, I guess, sick or tired of eating the same foods or having to stick to a routine. But the discipline of bodybuilding does require that to a large degree, because we're not talking about maintaining a lifestyle in that sense here. A bodybuilding competition requires one to get down to extremely low levels of body fat to stand on stage. So we're talking here about, standing on stage at a 4% to 5% body fat level, which is physiologically unhealthy for the individual. Now, our bodies require a higher level of body fat, and also depending on the type of body that you have, whether you're classically a mesomorph, an ectomorph, an endomorph, depends also on how you've grown up, whether you used to hold more fat as a kid and so forth. There are numerous factors that determine how much body fat your body is comfortable to hold when you are at a healthy state. Diving into comp at a 5% body fat level on stage is probably not the healthiest way to go. So is it healthy and optimal? No. However, it is an extreme sport. And if you're training for an extreme sport, just like any extreme athletes, there are certain sacrifices to be made. Now, my take on this is that there has to be the best way, the most optimal way in which you can dial an athlete down or dial myself down to that point in the healthiest manner possible, that I can stand on stage and still be the healthiest I can be at 5% body fat. So that is the direction in which I am going down, and this is the direction where I take a lot of my clients down when I do prep them out for competition as well. Have I used steroids? What do you guys think? I mean, look at me. No, I haven't used steroids before. I am a natural athlete. I compete in predominantly natural competitions. Now, I've also competed in untested federations, so competitions that don't require testing of athletes, and I do that because I like to challenge myself for what I know. Now, I know as a physique, my physique, I'm not genetically gifted. I definitely am not. I am a hard worker, and my goal really is to outwork, outsmart a lot of the competitors on stage with what I do behind the scenes. And that is understanding hormones, that is understanding training methodologies and so forth. So for me, it's really pitting my understanding and my scientific knowledge and application according to how I feel I can bring my best body shape, my physique to stage. I've never used steroids. Have I thought about it? Absolutely. Do I think it's worth it in the long run for myself? No, I don't. But I also really do like the challenge aspect of things, and that is how I can progress by getting the leanest I can be, by putting on as much muscle as I can, understanding the science and putting it upon myself. Because for me as a coach, I really think that if I can live this life and I can talk the talk and understand it, I should be able to walk the walk as well. And that is the only way that I can help people change their physiques, and that is if someone with poor genetics, but someone who is willing to put in the hard work, understands the science and puts that together and can have a package that is worthy of winning a competition, that is testament enough to be able to help someone to get to their very best from an aesthetic or a body composition point of view. And that's what I love, that's my passion. So every single day I'm experimenting on myself in that sense to bring my best, whether it's on a daily basis, whether it's a maintenance phase, or whether it is to competition. I would say my chest or my pectorals are probably the most dominant body part that I would have. And yeah, my pectorals and my back will be pretty dominant. I know I have a lot of other lagging body parts which I need to make up for, but I like to keep my chest and my back strong. Ooh. I'll be very honest with you, at different phases of my competitions or different comps that I've done, the food cravings constantly change. I used to crave a lot more fatty foods. I think it's also because of the types of diets that I use leading up to competition. But to keep it short, right now, I really crave a type of protein bar, which is a peanut butter protein bar. And that's literally all that I crave. It's a peanut butter collagen protein bar, the best tasting thing in the entire world. If there's anything I crave, it's that. Definitely not. No, not at all. There are people who want to compete that would like the physique on stage, but they don't know what it takes to get to stage in terms of the preparation. So I think a lot of people like the end product, but are not willing to put in the effort to get to the end product, because it is a journey of self-understanding and self-realization of a lot of things. So for certain individuals, they will hit the end point and they'll realize that the stage is not for them. They will never ever compete again. And as the process of that kind of ruined their relationship with training and the love of the gym. So competition is not for everyone. I think it takes a certain mindset to really want to compete and to do well in that particular competition. So for me, unless I can see that from the individual, I will not encourage them to delve into competition. Some females lose their period when they're prepping for a competition because often the period is a thermostat in the body. So the cycle of a female is what allows us to tell that the body is very well regulated with regards to its hormonal interaction. The female body has a complex interplay of hormones, and every month this accumulates within the period itself. Now, if this hormones or this environment of hormones is being, I guess for a better word, thrown out of whack, then the body behaves in ways that it is not conducive for the female, one of which is actually stopping the cycle completely. Often this happens because the estrogen level in the female is being suppressed, and estrogen is being suppressed because stress within the female's body is elevated. The increase in stress actually disrupts the hormonal cycle in such a way that the period stops completely. Now, this is a very common thing in the industry, especially when it comes to females training. It is common, but it is not normal. So I always tell clients, you got to be aware that yes, this happens, but ideally you don't want to force your body into such a state because it is an unhealthy state. Now, I typically find with female clients as well, if their period stops, then the ability to predict fat loss is more difficult because the body doesn't lose fat very linearly anymore. It becomes a little bit more unpredictable. So in saying so as well, typically females that compete may have periods of time for more than 3 months where they do not have their cycle, and that becomes amenorrhea, which is a medical condition. That's, again, common in the industry. That shouldn't happen. I think a lot of people should understand the female physique a lot more and understand that there are ways and methods to actually train a female in order to prevent that from happening, or if it does happen during the competition itself, that directly after the comp, the goal really is to try to rebalance those hormones and get the period back on a regular basis, once again, before they delve into any further competition. So I think that's extremely important. How would I manage cravings? A few ways. First and foremost is understanding that I want to be able to split my food, my calories through the day in a more balanced manner. I think some of us would, because of work, may eat less in the morning and a lot at night to try to compensate for the lack of food. This is where your appetite builds up. In order to curb any sort of cravings, I think it's very important to break your meals up evenly so you're having roughly even amount of calories throughout the entire day to pace that out, for one. Secondly, I also think it's the environment of how you expose yourself to certain foods. Now, if you constantly look at chocolates, if you constantly have chocolates around you, if everything on your Instagram feed or your social media feed is foods like pizzas, chocolates, foods that you actually crave or want to eat, then you are more than likely to want those foods. Hence those cravings. For me, if you are diving into competition, then I think there comes a point where you need to understand that the environment is very important, shapes your mindset and your thinking. And I really think that looking at those particular foods won't do you any good. So change that environment, and I think that's a lot better to clear your head space. Now, the next thing that I would probably tell people as well is water through the day. You don't understand the importance of what water can do with regards to appetite. The lack of water is often interpreted in our body as being hungry. You want to eat something, you're nippish. Now, we know that because you're not drinking enough water, and sometimes when you do drink water to feel the thirst that you have, for example, or even the lack of thirst, but drinking water, you would realize that those hunger pangs, those cravings for foods actually go away. And that is a sign that you're actually more dehydrated, you not knowing that you are, rather than a sign of you wanting more food. So those 3 tips will be what I'll look at. I would say for majority, most part of the competition for most people, yes, it will. Now, I think also it depends on how you prep yourself. So sudden cuts of calories or sudden increase in workload, for example, could definitely affect the libido, because libido is either affected by DHEA for females, or for males, we spoke about it, it could be a testosterone issue. So if you increase too much stress in the body, that actually suppresses libido issues. Now, if you are prepping smart and you're taking a much longer period of time for you to lose that weight, and you're taking a longer period of time before you increase the workload, then more than likely you can actually maintain your libido at a normal rate all the way to competition. Maybe 2 weeks out from competition, where you are, you're meant to be super depleted, that is where you may lose your libido. But right now, I think for me, having to learn from all my previous competitions, I know the way my body reacts to whether it's training or whether it's a food. It is more balanced now than it has been in any other previous competition. Of course, putting into effect all the mistakes that I've learned, as well as trying new nutritional strategies on myself. If you wake up in the morning and you're feeling really flat, and throughout the day your energy levels are super low, then you will realize that your libido would be very much affected. So the irony of the whole situation is, yes, you're competing in a bodybuilding comp. Yes, you probably will look the leanest and the best that you ever have looked, but at the same time, your sex drive is going to be low. During competition prep, I think the anxiety levels of an individual is going to increase only as the competition becomes closer. Now, that anxiety is increased by the pressure that they have on themselves, the increased output of training that they have, the increased output of cardio that they have, probably even dropping the calories itself. So the amount of adrenaline within their system stays high even when they're sleeping, which leads to a poor or disrupted sleep. Now, sleep is the most important time of the day where their body can completely recover, and that's critical to them staying lean, keeping on muscle. And so the lack of sleep is definitely something that we need to address for that particular individual. How would you get into a deeper sleep over this period of time? First and foremost, because they are highly stressed, I think it's very, very important that we look at how to decrease those stress levels. Often it's because of the amount of workouts that they do within the week itself, and they're really pushing themselves to increase their output. So what I would typically say is drop the volume of what they are doing. So if you are training with 20 sets per session, for example, drop the volume of that to half, 50%. So you might be doing 10 sets. And within the 10 sets itself, obviously make sure every set counts. You're actually pushing yourself as hard as you can, keeping that intensity for every single set. But instead of doing 20 sets, drop the intensity, or drop the volume, I would say, to 10 sets. Now that being said, that will drop the total amount of cortisol or stress within the system itself, and couple that with an increased amount of carbohydrates at the last meal prior to bed. So typically that could be dinner or the meal after dinner. And you're looking for lower GI carbohydrates, more sustaining carbohydrates. And why? Because carbohydrates actually increases the secretion of tryptophan within the body. Tryptophan converts into serotonin, a feel-good hormone, and serotonin then converts into melatonin. Melatonin is what gets the individual sleeping deeply and sleeping well. So nutrient timing, which is really what we call choosing the right sort of nutrients at certain types of the day. Nutrient timing is best when they're putting carbs post-workout and they're putting carbs prior to bed, which really can allow them to move into a deeper sleep. Carbs post-workout help them to reglycogenate as well, and that really could help recovery. So few things that they can do, and I think if they put those two into perspective, it will help them to move into a deeper sleep. Now the last thing is try to use a high quality magnesium supplement. I've spoken about this numerous times. A good quality magnesium supplement with numerous chelates can definitely help to put them into a deeper sleep. That is also another really good question. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to what exactly do you want out of this experience? If your goal is obviously to win the competition and you're not just going in there to give it a try, but you really want to put your best into the competition experience and leave no stone unturned to go there to win, then there has to be a certain sacrifice. And that's why bodybuilding is not for everyone. In fact, bodybuilding is a very selfish sport, if I would say so. It is a very self-centered sport. It's a sport that is focused on you and you alone rather than the people or, you know, the atmosphere around you. So definitely, if you are zoned in on the end goal, which is winning, I think naturally the priorities of other things such as certain foods or hanging out with friends would tend to come in as second or third or fourth and so forth. So what is your priority in that list is what you will need to identify. Now, obviously, if you place friends and family and certain foods at a very high priority list, and competition kind of, yeah, it'd be nice to compete, I like to stand on stage, but I'm not too sure of the process, then you would definitely have a battle between someone offering you food or saying you've got to eat this, and between the competition itself, because the priority level of what is being placed in front of you is, it varies. You know, food maybe be higher than the competition itself, and this is where your decision will be completely skewed. So choose what you want to out of the competition process. Like I said, it is not something that is for everyone. However, it is a conscious decision to put priority on what you want out of this process. So that's a wrap for today's video. I know I've answered a whole bunch of questions, but hey, thank you so much for sending through your questions and allowing me to answer those questions. I really hope that it gave you some of the answers that you want. Now, if you have more questions that you would like to ask about the competition process, make sure that you send me a DM perhaps on Instagram at @BenPerformanceCoach, or even comment below. That would be great to hear what you have to say. Guys, I'll see you in our next video.